Okay, we can call the meeting to order. This is the Economic Development Commission meeting of Thursday, April 9th. We're meeting in the second floor conference room of the Old Town Hall, as well as via Zoom. It is now 8:35. We're one person short of a quorum, but we can get started with a few introductions to begin with. I'll turn things over to you, Steve, for any opening remarks.
Sure. Welcome, Craig, again. It's nice to have you here. I think we could jump right in. We can't vote on the minutes without a quorum, right? So we'll hold off on that and maybe just jump straight into the agenda.
Yeah, I was hoping for a bit more time because this thing hasn't shown up yet. Sure.
One of the agenda items was just to sort of recap where we were on the University EDC Alliance.
Yes. Do you want to provide that overview?
Sure. Been talking with both Colin and Mark on just advancing a couple of the specific items, like trying to deploy a survey. I did a draft of that, got over to Mark. I didn't know if we agreed that that was a good and final stage, but just to have some data points for the next time we get together, specifically around where the low-hanging fruit is. What is the most impactful things that we could be doing for local businesses and making these connections? Then just organizing ourselves as to what we want to tackle next. It was probably setting up a Zoom meeting in the next month or so, and then trying to get together in person after the semester concludes, I'm assuming sometime in June. Soliciting opinions from Jen and Jen if that timing aligns. Particularly Jen, I don't know if, I'm sorry, I don't have his name in front of me, the professor that joined us.
Right. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Jen.
The dean. The dean, sorry.
The associate dean, Brent. Brent, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had Anka, who's our associate dean.
Yeah. Does like a June timeline work?
That should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We're done by May 9th.
Okay.
Classes end and yeah.
Graduation is the 9th.
Wow.
So they'll be
I
there.
don't know if people travel, like, semester's done, get out of Dodge. But we're continuing to move things forward, and hopefully the next sort of a shorter Zoom meeting, we could identify like who's doing what to get us moving, and then take it from there. But that's where we are. That's status. I don't know if anyone has any other questions.
Oh, thank you.
I think Mark has the presentation up, so I'll turn things back
I
over to
do.
you.
So, this is not, it doesn't appear it could be under other business, but if you, and we don't have a quorum, so I don't know if it's that consequential anyway, but just by way of introduction, I did ask, well, now we have a quorum. Colin's joining, so thank you. Welcome, Colin. I don't know if everyone knows our town planner, Emmeline Harrigan. She has graciously agreed to be with us this morning to explain a little bit about the changes to our parking and design business regulations, some of which have already been enacted by the Planning and Zoning Commission. There are other things under consideration that also may impact business districts, which I thought would be of general interest to this body. But Emmeline, do you know everyone in the room? Or online?
I believe I've met just about everybody.
Okay, so Jen Anderson's with Fairfield University, and Jen Trudeau is at Sacred Heart. Craig is actually visiting as our RTM liaison.
Great.
And, Colin is a member of the Economic Development Commission, as is Steve, our chair. And Don Peterson, who is also joining, is Commissioner Emeritus. So welcome all. And with that, I think I've tap danced around this long enough and provided time to gather my thoughts and for Emmeline to get our presentation up. So I'll turn things over to you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sure that many of you have heard that there was in the last legislative session, there was a housing bill that did not cross the finish line, and it it actually was passed by the legislature, was vetoed by the governor. And so there was a special session called, a lot of work behind the background, to adopt what is now commonly referred to as PA 25-1. This had ramifications to Fairfield in terms of parking regulations that we needed to adopt. I will say that in Fairfield, we're a bit of a unique environment. So we had already been contemplating some of these changes. There were a couple surprises that we didn't expect, but we think will be a positive in terms of supporting the kind of economic development that we want to see within Fairfield. This harkens back to the work that we did thanks to Mark's ability to get us a grant to do our TOD study. And I think a lot of the planning work that we do today really kind of goes back to the things that we talked about within the community, that the community expressed back to us. And that's, the most valuable thing that we love about Fairfield is its walkability, its pedestrian-oriented downtowns. And some of the things I think that people feel less positive about are the later developed commercial corridors that are heavily automotive oriented. So our commission has been kind of pondering this issue for quite some time. PA 25-1 just helped us kind of get to the finish line in some of the regulations that we were thinking about that really help produce more mixed use, pedestrian-oriented environments in Fairfield. If we go to the next slide. So for the parking regulations, I think you just have to scroll down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a PowerPoint instead of a... Oh, can you scroll down on the right?
I'm trying. Where is it?
The bars on the
Wait a
right.
second. Let me minimize this.
Okay.
Does this work?
Let's see.
That's even less. Oh.
Does it allow you to go to the next one?
Yeah, I could definitely go to the next one.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. And maybe where's the zoom in?
those? This one.
Oh yeah, that should do it. I think.
Not letting me.
Does the little one that has a play symbol on the right?
Oh, maybe where it says slideshow? Start slideshow? Start from the beginning.
Okay, sorry.
And I think-
Sorry, y'all.
I think we can just, hopefully
There
we
we
could
go.
just, okay, then we could just
Hey,
arrow,
now
I
we
think.
can go to-
Let's see, does that work? Yay!
Yay!
Okay, woohoo, technology win. In particular, in PA 25-1, there's section 19 and 20, and you may have, this has been well discussed amongst the social media channels, but what it does limit the town is in regards to developments with 16 or more residential units, or 16 or less residential units. The town at this point can't require or mandate a parking ratio for any development that includes 16 units or less. But we can require parking for 17 units or more, is the way that we adopted the regulation. And this has been a ratio that's been talked about within pending state law that was adopted. And we've found this parking ratio not to be an issue, which is one space for up to one bedroom, two spaces for two bedrooms or more. And this is a new term, the result of a parking needs assessment if that defines a lesser parking ratio requirement. We have always had something in our regulations within Fairfield to address those uses. Within most zoning regulations, there is a parking use table that says, if you're this type of business, you need this number of parking spaces. If you're this type of business, you need this number. We've always had, and most municipalities do have, a parking table. But we've always had this optional category where the commission can make a finding of parking sufficiency if there were uses that we did not anticipate for the table, where the property owner or the developer could kind of let us know how much parking they felt was needed. The commission could review that, ensure that they felt that the parking that was being supplied was safe and adequate. So this, again, was not a new concept to Fairfield. It's something that the commission had been already doing for quite some time. What we did with this regulation is we took the opportunity to expand the application of a parking needs assessment, not just to mixed-use developments or to multifamily residential developments over 17, but also to our multi-tenant plazas. So if we go to the next slide. One of the reasons for this was the parking study that was done by Bob Ellwanger, and when he was a member of the Affordable Housing Committee, that I think probably has been shared with you, but
Yes, it has.
as we know, we have very large shopping centers where the previous practice within planning and zoning was to have a multiple use additive parking requirement. So if you had a tenant that required a certain number, you'd add it to the next tenant and then the next tenant and the next tenant. Theoretically, it makes sense to do it that way. In reality, what we've ended up with are these oversized parking lots that underutilize the potential for development in Fairfield across many locations within town. So we did actually look at kind of the parking, additional parking alternatives at that time. So again, there's the parking needs assessment where we rely on a certain metrics in terms of the developer providing us with something based on the ITE. What does ITE say your parking requirement is? Do you have extenuating circumstances where you've got multiple tenants in a plaza? Do you have the ability to share parking within close adjacency to a public lot? Are you within a transit area where you know that, and we've seen this with our TOD developments in town, people can get away with one car per household instead of 2 or 3. And then also within the state statute, one of the things that is required is a fee in lieu of parking. So if a developer can't meet parking requirements, they have the ability to pay a fee for the parking needed as long as there's not a public safety impact to them not supplying that parking. And that allows us to tie into the Complete Streets ordinance that we have in town that was really spearheaded by the late Bill Gerber. And we can kind of create a Complete Streets Fund. The statute does indicate that fee in lieu of parking does have to be designated for transportation-oriented spending. So this allows us to create that Complete Streets Fund and hopefully be able to really end up doing some of the projects that I think we've talked about, but maybe don't have the funds for right now. The other thing that we decided to do as part of this was parking flexibility in the CDD zone. So if we go to the next slide. The map, and I'm sorry that it's a little bit faint, but all of the red box parcels that you can see within our Fairfield downtown, all of those properties have been issued variances for parking. Mark is laughing. We should all laugh because, we are so fortunate here in Fairfield that we have a downtown that has been maintained, that was developed pre-automobile, that is really one of the premier walking downtowns in the entire state of Connecticut. And we feel that that's historically special. It really drives a lot of our vitality. And we didn't want to keep sending people to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we created within our parking alternatives an ability for existing buildings that they can convert to new uses without having to supply any additional parking. That's essentially what the variance structure has done, and we just wanted to immortalize that within the zoning regulations itself. If those users feel like they have a significant increase in the parking required, they can also do a joint parking use. And so it was a good segue, Mark, don't worry.
Skipping ahead.
I think some of you are familiar with the recently approved 730 Commerce Drive, which is a new mixed-use development, which is on the site of where Rio Bravo was located. It's across from Alto, which, if many of you didn't know, was actually constructed with extra parking. At the time that they were contemplating that building, there was still a significant parking demand, and there was a waiting list at the Fairfield Blackrock train station. They could not have foreseen the pandemic and the change in work requirements, but they have extra parking there. So they were slightly under provided for their parking calculation at 730 Commerce, but, you know, they were able to make the argument that there's a public parking garage at Alto, which is true. And so, you know, it was approved with less than the required parking amount. One of the things that we did contemplate is right now for a joint parking use, you have to be within 500 feet. Your standard shopping center, you park one place and you walk really great distances. So what we decided to do was to increase that joint parking relationship where it doesn't have to just be an adjacent neighbor. It can be a neighbor that is a bit further away from you, as in the mall example. So if we go to the next slide, you know, you can see that even from the downtown train station parking lot, you know, that's an equivalent or shorter distance to get to the main library, to get to other places within downtown Fairfield. I know that we've talked about this for quite some time, but, you know, wayfinding would really help in the center in terms of, you know, helping people feel comfortable with the parking supply that's available. From a planning perspective, and we've talked about this at TPZ, one of the next natural things that we probably should do is a parking study for joint parking lots, working with property owners to, you know, figure out whether we could decrease the number of curb cuts and car access ways and really work for a joint parking supply like some of the other districts within Connecticut have done, like Westport and West Hartford, Norwalk, for example, even Middletown. And we're mature enough that we should probably be looking at the same thing. Next slide, please. So the other big thing within PA 25-1 is the requirement for transit community middle housing, which is defined by the statute as developments with 2 to 9 units or mixed use. And we reviewed this language with our town attorney, Phil Pierce, and I'm going to circle that "or" because, to be honest, for me, as a planner, understanding what we know about Fairfield, a 2 to 9 unit development in our commercial or mixed use zones is an underwhelming development for Fairfield. We can accept much more. We have much more now. And so we are not including that transit middle housing language in any part of our zoning regulations. We're just ignoring it and we're doing the mixed use development because there's an "or" in that statement. What this means, though, is that within our commercial or mixed use zones, we have to really think about the standards that we want. And within the statute, it allows those mixed use developments by what's called summary review, which is by site plan review within our current process that we have available. So if we go to the next slide.
Did I hit the right one? Oh.
This is not news to you, but of course, has been discussed, you know, just 4.5 to 5%, depending on how you look at it, of our town land is viable for commercial use. We did not want to waste the opportunity of having ground floor commercial, which is why we're not including any of the language for transit middle housing. We really want to maximize having ground floor commercial, residential above. And as you know, if you look at the key map on the upper left of this kind of grouping of diagrams, we have such a small area of our land that is zoned commercially. We really have to be very intentional about all the opportunities that we have available to us. Next slide. So that's kind of what our commission talked about. We recognize that, you know, as the town, we can only kind of establish the framework, which is giving people the envelope that they can work with. We did kind of try to be a little bit forward thinking in terms of if we're modifying our regulations, what are those blind spots that we have to be aware of? As many of you know, Sturm Ruger is for sale, which is the bottom image, and it's a weird property because it does an inverted L behind a town-owned open space. So we did take the opportunity to include language that requires that ground floor commercial facing collector roads, but the other portions of the development, if they want to do ground floor residential, they can do that. If they have a unique site where they don't have portions that are facing our primary commercial corridors. No, that's all right. Summary review, just to review what that entails. It is an as of right, no longer than 65-day process Within the updated state statute, it does require a determination that public health and safety will not be substantially impacted.
And that's
I think-
before the commission.
It does go before the commission. I do think that there's been a little bit of misinformation out in the community that this really means that, oh my gosh, this is like an 830G. That is absolutely not the case. What it requires is that the Plan and Zoning Commission be thoughtful about what the regulations are. For example, if we have, for a site plan review, oftentimes what comes to the commission is a change in use. So if we have a retail establishment that is converting to a restaurant, we still have standards that apply to that restaurant. If they want to do outdoor dining, there are standards that apply. If they, even in terms of the parking requirement, there's a standard that applies. I think there's been a little bit of misinformation that it's like the town can't enforce any regulations. That is absolutely incorrect. So what it means is that we have to think about what do we want mixed-use buildings to be, if we go to the next slide. I think what we, slide before, I guess. That was my fault. And so, obviously we have our current design commercial district, which is auto-oriented, our center design district, which is pedestrian-oriented. We have heard through our POCD process that a lot more folks want other commercial corridors to start to turn the corner and be more pedestrian-oriented, that they don't feel safe, even if they live very in close proximity. It feels unsafe to walk within those areas, even if there are sidewalks available. So that's kind of been our task. If we go to the next slide. There's also an additional, that got cut off. There's also an additional optional public act that was adopted during the regular session, which is PA 25-164. And this is for conversion of vacant commercial to residential. And it would be 100% residential. We had this occur with 60 Katona Drive, which was an outdated office building that was mostly vacant for a while. They did have some level of tenants, but they did have a high vacancy rate. That was something that came before the commission. They got a variance first to allow that building to be converted to 100% residential. Ultimately, it ended up being bought by the Goddard School, and it will be a childcare center instead. But, we've had inquiries, for example, for our 430 Tungus Hill Road, the former car dealership. Can we convert that to 100% residential? As we tend to do, because, we want to see ground floor commercial. We've advised them, yes, but it would be really nice if you could do some level of ground floor commercial. But we understand for, uniquely designed and developed buildings, sometimes it's hard to convert them to commercial. It might be easier to convert them to residential. We don't think that this is going to occur very often, but adopting these regulations that allow this by summer review does unlock some additional funding opportunities. And as Mark often says to me, more tools in the toolbox is what we want in Fairfield, not less. So there are standards that come with that. The other thing that we talked about, and many of you recognize, this 830G project at the corner of Ruane and the Post Road. The commission struggled with this building because they really wanted ground floor commercial. We discussed this building with the Department of Housing, who at the time said, no, you can't do ground floor commercial, even though the applicant was willing to do that, because 830G projects are 100% residential only. So the commission took this opportunity to also add within our designed business district regulations the allowance for conversion of existing ground floor residential to commercial in an 830G building, as long as they maintain the 30% affordability. And, you can tell with that particular building that it was built and designed for a ground floor commercial experience. So at some point, if, the ability to get a larger return on a commercial ground floor tenant is available to them and they want to, convert that, we want to provide the opportunity for that. So in talking about equalizing the business district design standards, really what we're talking about is equalizing the design commercial district, which is already 4 stories, to the same height as the center design district. Our TOD study really kind of pointed out to us that you really need that first floor that's a higher height in order to allow it to be adaptable, and reusable. So we are following that same train of thought to a design commercial district. And, sometimes the regulations that we adopt are not just for today, but how redevelopment will need to occur in the future. And we know that a lot of our buildings are very old, so we want to be able to provide these opportunities to really allow them to kind of be the development that we'd like to see, even if that doesn't happen 10 years from now. The other important thing that we did is we did expand the height allowance within the neighborhood design district, and we expanded some of those lot coverages. In talking about walkable buildings, one of the things that our regulations had was a minimum setback requirement, and we revised that to a maximum setback requirements. So now all buildings within our commercial districts have to be within 10 feet of their property line, their street-facing property line. They can be right up to the line if that's what makes sense from the rhythm and design of how, if they're doing a redevelopment project and everybody else is at a zero lot line, certainly makes sense for them to keep that. But we think that that's really the direction that the town wants to move in for not just replacement of existing buildings. I mean, I think my concern was, and I would lie awake at night, is we have this really extraordinary downtown, and presently our regulations required a 10-foot minimum, and it would have completely changed what we love about Fairfield downtown today. And I think this provides an opportunity when we see redevelopment along Black Rock Turnpike in our other commercial corridors. And I do think that Kings Highway is going to be one of the next areas that really starts to redevelop. We're hopefully going to be able to replicate those walkable environments. Lastly,
Line, just
Yeah.
just a quick question of clarity on that. So the former Rite Aid building, for instance, would they have to comply with this setback?
yes, they would if they tear down the building and start new.
And
Yes.
then how do you, I think I've asked this question before, but just for clarity, so when new buildings are being proposed, I think one of the things also about downtown is the aesthetics of the building and the buildings that keeps sort of the downtown look. And I think sometimes that's also what people in town respond to is sort of the look and feel. So if you take even what the look of the Rio Grande, building is, that building to me wouldn't fit in our sort of traditional walking pedestrian downtown. So how does that come into play in terms of developers and sort of the look and feel? I mean, I would even argue that the 830G building that's up, next to St. Thomas kind of doesn't fit the aesthetics of downtown. But are there controls or ways that can also be something that the town has influence over?
So presently, we have architectural site and design requirements. Those are being re-reviewed and upgraded. So we're working with when
They apply to the center design district.
it's going to actually apply to all of our business districts, as well as our design residence district, as well as our design industrial district. And so one of the things that, irregardless of the style that you choose for architecture, we have an architect on the commission, and so he's very cognizant of, you have your ground floor plate that has a certain style and look, needs a certain percentage of window openings, right, to be very engaged with your the folks who are walking along the sidewalk. Then you have kind of a middle part of the building. But I think one of the things that happens with more modern buildings is they don't really have a defined cap a lot of the times. And so it really kind of doesn't give you the same kind of feel in terms of the building. We also, within our commercial districts, have a setback for any portion of the building that's over 30 feet in height. So that's going to give a different massing, even if it's a 4-story building, it's going to feel more like a 3-story building because it'll have a setback.
So the short answer is yes, we're looking at those design.
We are, yeah.
aesthetics.
And then lastly, for the conservation and parking, and in the statute, it's written as a traffic mitigation district. We're going to go with parking because we think that's really what it speaks to. Our commission had kind of talked about the specialness of Southport and some of the concerns in the beach area for, really constrained parking. again, if we go back to what the statute calls out, is it does not mandate a parking requirement for any development that has less than 16 units. And where we feel a very significant parking demand is the beach rental community. And I think the commission felt that given its historic nature, that they really wanted to ensure that everything that gets developed in Southport has adequate off-street parking, because right now that's not a district where, it's a district where, you have a lot of narrower streets, historic neighborhoods that are kind of close together. So those were the two areas that they targeted. And if we go to the next slide. These are the draft maps. This is a very recent conversation. This just was a conversation that was started on Tuesday. So these maps may change, but these are the areas that they're kind of thinking of where right now there's constrained parking supply. There's a lot of on-street parking. I don't think that a lot of developers are going to build their buildings without parking. But you may have something. I mean, I think when we think about the Fairfield Center, there's been a lot of discussion amongst the commission. Oh, do we include the center in this? I have reservations about doing that because that was a center that was developed pre-automobile. So if now we have very onerous requirements for parking that are applied to that district, we may lose what is unique and special about some of these buildings that frankly have zero parking spaces associated with them, but are in close relationship to the sidewalk and the street edge. So the commission is still talking through that, TBD, but just wanted to give you an update as to what the rest of the statute kind of speaks to and where the Town Plan and Zoning Commission is working on these things. For the parking regulations, that was adopted in early March. The Design Business District regulations were adopted at our March 24th meeting. So both of the regulations that I've kind of talked to you about have already been adopted. We're working on updating the Commerce Drive area district regulations to make those a little less complicated. And we do have to also allow the mixed-use development in that area to be permitted by summary review, which is that 16-day review window with very specific standards. So that's what I have.
Thank you. The thinking behind, I understand the Southport Village parking restrictions and the conservation area and the beach area, but the thinking behind extending that to include portions of the Post Road corridor in Southport and then northward towards Fairfield U, what's the thought process behind that?
It's really, so what this does, just to reinstate what the
Yes, thank you.
So what this does is it basically reinstates the regulation where there's no regulation based on the statute for developments under 16 units. It basically provides the same regulation as the 17 and over. So any one-bedroom unit or smaller has to have one parking space. Any unit, 2 bedrooms or bigger, has to at least provide 2 parking spaces. Or a parking needs assessment if you're doing a mixed-use building, a multi-tenant commercial building, and then it's the lesser of those 2 per the statute. This was a draft based on comments from our TPZ commission. Again, these are very draft maps. This may change. I think there was some concern about they're thinking very long-term. When we don't have a moratorium in 9 years, what's the potential for what could happen? I don't have, I think that one of the things that we have to think about is if there were a 15-unit development, a mixed-use development in the center, and they chose to build it without parking. We have a semi-diverse amount of units available. I think that those units are not going to rent to somebody who has 2 cars and needs to park 2 cars. I think that there's a market for people who want a car-less lifestyle, whether you're somebody who can no longer drive. It's not a choice, it's a reality. Whether it's somebody who can't afford the price of a car and the insurance and all those things. So to me, I feel like we're not going to have this huge groundswell of anything under 16 units that has the potential to be built without parking. But if we have a couple units that are, it just provides choice in the marketplace.
I tend to agree because, you know, most developers want to appeal to the broadest market possible to rent their units. So if you don't provide any parking, it's going to only appeal to a very small subset of the market, and that kind of undercuts their ability to realize return on that investment.
Exactly.
So I tend to agree. It's probably not likely to happen, but I understand and appreciate the concern. So, Steve?
Just the comment I have is it seems like that would really transform the downtown. Like as we continue to consider like more housing, more housing, more housing downtown. I mean, if you go back 10 years ago, there was almost no housing downtown. I mean, there's a smattering of apartments. Now you're going to have the one next to on Umpqua, the other one that went in over to Chelsea. The potential for like filling all of downtown with housing or apartments will change it dramatically. I mean, maybe for the better. I'm not judging it that way, but it will be completely different than what we're used to now. Just an opinion. I don't know.
No, I do think that it will, all communities evolve over time. I do think that housing is an important component of having a vibrant downtown. You need people to frequent your stores and visit your restaurants and your cultural venues, so it's helpful. But everything needs to have some balance to it. I think they're trying to define an envelope here within which it's possible, and it doesn't dramatically change the size and scale of development that's currently allowed. In fact, it shrinks the height from the current,
5 stories.
5 stories to 4 stories, but keeps the height essentially at 52 feet now to provide for that larger floor plate. But, again, as you have properties that age, and you want to redevelop them, no one's going to put back exactly what's there.
I understood. I'm not saying
If you want those sites to be redeveloped, to modernize them or to make them, more aesthetically appealing, or just to, respond to the fact that it's an aging physical infrastructure that would need to be upgraded. At some point, you're going to have to replace it. And to replace it, you're going to need to build something a little bigger than what's there in order for that to make any economic sense. So,
no, understood. I just want to, I guess, point it out that like it is enabling the transformation of downtown from what it is, what we're used to something that's going to be a lot different. I encouraged Emily and pointed out that, Kings Highway, which could use a development, is ripe for it. The growth of the universities makes that downtown a lot more dynamic. It's fun to walk down there and see like the groups of kids out there. And like a couple weekends ago, being for basketball games at the Old Post Tavern, there was just a whole bunch of Fairfield U kids, and it was fun to see how much fun they were having.
I would totally agree with the point that Jennifer made earlier, which is we need to really strengthen our design aesthetics to ensure that we get the look of the buildings that we want that do.
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. Like
add to the character.
You get a hodgepodge, that is the worst thing.
Well, a hodgepodge doesn't necessarily, it's good to have variety, but I think there does need to be, we could all, I think, when we go to areas, we appreciate quality design. And I think Fairfield deserves nothing less than quality design, especially in the downtown area. We want to make sure these are signature buildings that really speak to the downtown aesthetic that we'd like to preserve and enhance. So,
Yeah, especially, I'd say, I know the Circle Diner was very controversial. However, I would say that the design of those units aesthetically is really nice. And that's going to make a big difference aesthetically in that area. So like to me, that style would fit nicely downtown where the very modern, Mark, I've mentioned the one by exit 21, it's hidden, it's off, it's not in eyesight of the post road, but that's just not an aesthetically pleasing building.
Is that nice building?
That would not fit the downtown.
I
So I think,
it's
you
Al
know,
Cameron.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Agreed.
talking, we agree.
Agreed.
We're definitely not wanting to see that replicated.
yes,
Sure.
I'm happy that one's covered.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask about a very specific thing. I saw a comment in there about extra height for the floodplain. How often is the floodplain revisited, and how does that factor in?
So the floodplain is defined by FEMA. So FEMA provides us with the flood maps. There are not that many buildings that are subject to it. There are a couple down on Reef Road that are in the floodplain. And essentially, they get a height bonus if they have to elevate a portion of the building in order to meet the flood standards. But there are not that many right now buildings in the floodplain. The Flood Prevention, Climate Resilience Erosion Control Board is updating their resiliency master plan. And, I have concerns because it gets closer to the post road, especially by Thorpe Street.
That's where parking really would get more pinched.
Yeah, so I think that they're very thoughtful and intentional about wanting to make sure that, we are looking at protection projects for Fairfield. I do think that there's a potential opportunity with the Thorpe Street redevelopment to maybe look at a flood protection structure there, but we have to talk it through with the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to see how viable a private-public partnership might be that could provide long-range flood protection to Route 1.
Thanks.
Other questions for Emmeline? I just want to thank you. I mean, this has been, that was really very helpful, a lot better than what I could do. So, but the parking regulations and the changes to the design business district regulations have been adopted with the exception of those conservation parking areas
Districts,
that
yeah.
are now being considered. So that's where we are in terms of status. So if we certainly have some additional time to think about that, but I just wanted to take advantage of Emmeline's expertise in this area and give you guys a more in-depth understanding of the changes that the commission has made and is contemplating and it might impact our business district. So thank you.
And I would also, sorry, go ahead. You have a question?
I have a question. Emmeline, thank you so much for that. I feel like I was getting Fairfield Commercial District 101 on there, so that was very helpful to me. Question. So way back in the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned something called Complete Streets Fund. And then there was I think you said there was like an RTM role for that. Is that, I guess, first of all, I don't know what the Complete Streets Fund is. And then secondly, is the RTM role coming up or is that?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Can you explain that?
So we adopted the regulation in March. Hopefully I'm going to the Board of Selectmen at the end of April, and then I can be scheduled to come to the RTM to ask for the creation of that fund. Very similar to, I think you have an arts fund now too, right?
No, just maybe some.
Well, similar, I guess
Housing Trust Fund.
similar to the process that we use to create the Housing Trust Fund. So per the statute, it has to be a designated fund. Anything that goes into that fund can't go into the general fund. It has to be unique and separate. So that's the reason why. I'll see you guys soon. I don't know when, but.
Can you tell me what the fund would fund?
So it is specifically designated within the statute to be used for transportation projects, additional public parking. So I feel like, if we end up doing a wayfinding study and we are able to kind of coordinate and collaborate private property owners together, again, like other town towns have done, like Westport and West Hartford, we can use that for wayfinding signage. It's really going to depend on how much is in the fund. Right now, the state law kind of gives us what we're required to do in terms of setting up a fund. we don't know if anybody's going to use the fund, but I think the way that we're going to set it up is if people wanted to make donations into it, or if, the commission wants to apply for grant funding, it can go to that fund.
So just a great background, Craig. I actually got a grant about 10 years ago from the Connecticut Main Street Center to do a wayfinding study and plan, which we developed. And I asked for a cost estimate to implement the wayfinding plan. And it was over $1 million at that time. And I didn't think that there was going to be any support without a more comprehensive, if you're doing streetscape enhancements and other roadway improvements, sure, you can incorporate wayfinding, which we need to do intentionally, but I didn't think there would be a lot of funding support for, just putting up wayfinding signage independent of anything else. So I do think some additional funding support or sources of funds later would be very helpful.
And which bill was this? 25-1? That Public Act 25-1 that?
Yes,
authorized this?
yeah, that includes that. Did I reference the section? Let me see. Let's see.
Wayfinding possible to do electronically?
Where is that?
Yes, it is possible to do
Obviously, it doesn't do
electronically.
like stuff. But
I think downtown it would make more sense to
What
have
about
it
that section? Sorry.
focused on pedestrian scale. Yeah.
I can send it to you if you need it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Pretty good student project though.
Yeah.
So I was going to mention this in the more business part of or additional business part of the agenda, but I guess I'll just do it now since I'm talking already. Have I mentioned to this? It looks like I attended the last one, Mark, because I'm in the minutes. Have I explained to this group kind of why I'm observing these meetings and what's going on in the RTM regarding housing and development? Have I explained that to this group yet?
I think you did, but
I think you did, Craig, yes.
I heard it last time, but I'm not sure if it was affordable housing or this group. So I'm glad other commissioners jumped in.
Okay. Yeah, just real quick. So as a review, and maybe for those that are on that didn't hear this last time, so the RTM has established these informal working groups. They're informal, and they're also just Democrats. So it's just the Democratic caucus, but there's 35 Democrats and 3 Republicans. So it's almost the entire RTM. So these are groups that are just focusing on important topics. So there's a housing and development working group, which I chair, and there's about 9 or 10, so like 25% of the RTM is on that. There's a budget working group, there's a traffic and safety working group, and then there's a few others as well, I guess. And so my job and others on this working group is to kind of track what's going on with the different advisory committees and commissions in town. I'm going to try to go to as many Affordable Housing Committee and Economic Development Commission meetings as I can. Hopefully I'll pop in on some of the P&Z meetings as well. But, Emmeline, if this issue or this Complete Streets Fund is going to come before the RTM, let me say, I think it might be a benefit, and it's sort of as a practice, if there's things that are going to come before the RTM that might be something that's going to generate a lot of discussion. We could kind of this committee anyway, this working group could, maybe get briefed on it so that we can kind of dig into it a little bit before it comes before the full body.
Sure, and even if you wanted the similar presentation as what I just gave to your working group, I'm happy to do that as well.
Or just on Complete Streets, for example. Yeah, but maybe the entire thing would be helpful.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, let me know. I'm an email away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
that was repetitive from last time.
Steve, back to you.
Well, we're on agenda, so I believe we have the director's report coming.
Well, we can approve the minutes since we have Colin here as well, if folks would like to do that.
That's right. I did take that note, but I'm actually, my Cleveland offices and my CEO keeps walking by and seeing if I'm almost done. So
All right.
just a little distracted.
We'll move it fast.
All right. No, he's disappeared. So he's down the hall in his office. But anyway, so motion to approve minutes.
Motion.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. I don't have a lot, I mean, I know this was lengthy, but I thought it was a timely topic. The Planning and Zoning Commission is moving so quickly to adopt some of the policy recommendations in the POCD and change regulations. So when Emmeline offered to be here, I said, yeah, this would be great, because we've talked about some of the changes that they're contemplating. We even talked about providing letters in support, and before we can actually author and submit a letter, they've adopted the changes. So I just thought it would be timely to have her come in and give you a quick overview as to what is being considered in those changes. And, you know, again, I know the design considerations is upcoming, so I'll keep you posted on that, because I know that that's, it's of concern to me as well. And, in terms of any other reports, I just would mention that the chamber is having their Spring Fling, which is their spring annual fundraiser, on April 29th from 6 to 9 at Penfield Pavilion. So I'm happy to share that invite for those who may be interested. We're tracking a few development applications. One is one that Emmeline mentioned at 730, 750 Commerce Drive. Still working through some issues as it relates to securing an easement, revised easement for sewer, and working out those issues so that project can go forward. There was recently a conceptual plan review that was done for the Thorpe Street property, Bob Sinto's development site, where the Fairfield Lumberyard used to be. Very similar to what was already approved for the site, but no longer, working with as part of an age-restricted development. With that, I've just opened it up if anyone has any other questions. I think for May, one of the things I wanted to do was invite Ken Kleban or a representative of his team to brief the commission on a proposed development on Black Rock Turnpike in Stilson, which is a proposed retail and office development there where Dolan Corner currently resides, and there's a small medical office building behind. Very exciting project, and I extended to him an invitation to share those details with the commission. I think we'll work to do that in May. And then the other thing in May that I'm looking at is we had talked about Tunxus Road, and that's currently zoned neighborhood design, and some of the businesses there had expressed an interest in extending the design commercial district up the Tunxus Hill corridor, which provides a little bit more flexibility in terms of both permitted uses and what can be done with respect to their properties. So again, that might be a conversation we would have more in depth in May. So with that, I'll open it up to any other closing questions. I know everyone's on a time constraint. So any questions? Steve?
No, sounds good for me. I know I got to follow up with Colin and try and connect and move things on the University EDC Alliance. No other questions for me.
Okay. I know we're pretty much out of time, so everyone good?
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks,
That
everyone.
sounds-
Motion.
All right.
think
Thank
that
you
passed.
all.
Thank you.
Take care.